what a pleasure to, like I just said, David, to see not only the face, but the hair of the great David Yost after talking to you so many times over the years. When in doubt, when I've got to learn something about the quarterback position, you got to call David Yost. I think a lot of the folks here at Go Long are familiar with you. You're one of the few people who knew what was coming with Jordan Love, and you helped kind of wire my brain back in 2020, 2021 to let people know what was coming. But man, you've worked with so many NFL quarterbacks. You know so much about the quarterback position. It only made sense here on the eve of the NFL draft to shoot the ball a little bit. But how's life? What you been up to lately?
It's good. We just finished our spring ball here at New Mexico State. I got here in January and kind of just putting in the offense and fine tuning it and trying to take steps forward with the offense with the program for Coach Sanchez. So now we're getting ready for recruiting, which that kind of opens up tomorrow, spring recruiting, and then the portal opens on the 16th, and it's open for 10 days, and we'll see how that affects everything throughout, which everybody's seeing what's going on right now. And I mean, officially opens tomorrow, but you're hearing stuff and seeing stuff as we go. But no, it's just how college football has kind of evolved to the world of free agency.
Offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach right there in New Mexico State after Florida International. But what's life like with the portal now? Is it just 24/7, 365 needing to stay on your toes with the movement of 18 to 22-year-olds today?
Yeah, and what you try to talk to your guys, you try to figure out where they're at. I mean, like I've got a room right now with three scholarship quarterbacks. One was a transfer. It came in from Montana. They signed before I got here. Logan Fife going through spring. We had a incoming freshman, so really a high school senior. He graduated early, came in January, went through everything, and then one guy returning from last year's group, which he was new last year. Just that's how the transition happens at a lot of schools, especially the group of five. So those three guys went through the spring, and now we're kind of figuring out, okay, making sure, and you try to talk to them and find out what their thoughts are, because there's no like contract that locks anybody in really in college. I mean, if all of a sudden somebody wants to go in on the 16th, they can go in. So that's part of what you deal with and everything. So you try just to know what's going on with them, try to be truthful, try to tell them exactly where they stand, what's going on, what your plans are. So, but it's a nonstop deal, and then constantly checking all the different sites and all the things putting out who's going in, who's announced they're going in, who might be going in, how the situations are going other places, and not just like I track the quarterbacks, but also you're tracking all of offense, because there's some positions we're looking to still add to this spring positionally. So I'm trying to help our line guy and help our tight end guy and those types of things to see if anything pops, and then we'll have to see what happens with us. Are we gonna have some unforeseen or surprised positions that have need all of a sudden because someone's decided they've got an opportunity or want to go see how it is. So no, it's a different world than it was 20-25 years ago when I got into this, and it's way different even 10 years ago going through those things. And I don't know if the quarterbacks I've had, I don't know how many of those guys would have stuck around if they had to wait. That's kind of the quarterback world. I mean, do you wait your turn or your chance and opportunity? And that doesn't happen as much as it used to. And I mean, everybody saw what was going on with Tennessee over the weekend and that. So I mean, and that's guy, he wasn't waiting his turn. It just, well, he was trying to get taken care of in the way he felt he deserved to be taken care of, and which in rules now you can. So it's a different world in that way.
I thought that was a win for humanity and loyalty, though, that Tennessee as a program basically said, like, we've got to build a team. Like, that kind of matters in football. And it's hard. I don't envy the position you coaches are in where you have to attract talent and appeal to talent and keep them around. And there's a certain layer of coddling everybody kind of has to accept, I suppose. But shit, it's football. At the end of the day, it's 22 moving parts smashing into each other, and you still got to build a team, and that matters. So, amen to Josh Heupel and all those coaches out there to kind of step up and keep the train moving. But how do you balance that all, Dave? You want the best players, and they want a lot of money, but at the same time, chemistry matters, and you got to kind of sell these principles that have always worked in football since the sport was invented.
Oh yeah, no, you have that, but I remember we talked about it when Jordan was young. I mean, because they had a situation there with Aaron Rodgers, which was not your prototypical quarterback situation, and how things were going in that way. So, and they finally got to a point where they had to make a decision, just like Tennessee had to make their decision. And I mean, and everybody's talking, oh, that's great what Tennessee did. I'm like, yeah, it is, and they they better win games. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. I mean,
Right, that's true. That's true.
it's
It's the
great
bottom
right now.
line still.
Yeah, they won the spring game. That's great. But now they were in the playoffs last year. So what's their fan base expect? I mean, the old adage. I mean, you're at a job as long as the expectations of the fans allow it, and everything. So and everybody's excited about that. But the bottom line is, Coach Heupel and those guys they need to win football games, and that's what the expectation is. No one will remember why or why not it didn't happen. So, nope. And I mean, they recruit good quarterbacks every year. I mean, their freshman kid coming in, he's the nephew of the head coach I was working for at Florida International, Coach McIntyre. That's his nephew. So I know George, the freshman there. He came to camp a couple of times at FIU. So and he'll do a good job. But I mean, he's a high school senior going through spring ball and threw a touchdown the other day in their spring game I saw, which was great. But bottom line is, you got to have good players and you got to put it together. And now we have GM positions, which we didn't have GM positions before. And then, so I mean, everything's changed in college, but it's for the best. And they never asked my opinion, so guess what? I don't really need to have an opinion on all that. It's just, hey, this is what we have to get done, and how do we get it? How do we get our best 11 guys on the field? How do we have our best 22? How do you put all that together? How do you keep it moving? How do you train guys when you have so many new guys that come in now in January for a fall to go play? Because it used to be you looked ahead. I mean, I remember at Missouri, we were always sitting there and you're looking 2 and 3 years out, because if a guy left, it was kind of a surprise. It didn't happen a
Yeah.
lot there, because there was kind of a penalty. If you left, you were going to lose a year, or you had to transfer down. So it didn't happen as much. So you were constantly looking at the kind of the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year plan in that way. Now it's more of you're looking at about an 8 to 9 month plan, and then it all happens again, because you can't, if you plan too far out, you're just wasting your time, because you don't know what you're going to have.
So you were at Missouri. I had to look it up here to make sure. Obviously, you were at Tiffin, then Toledo for 5 seasons, quarterbacks
Yep, 5 years
coach, and
ago.
then Missouri from '01 to 2012. So I'm thinking of
Yep.
what Chase Daniel, Blaine Gabbert. I mean, you were around some prolific offenses, prolific quarterbacks. Justin Herbert in Oregon, obviously Jordan Love with Utah State, but just the origins of kind of how you view the quarterback position, and where do you point to for that? How did you kind of really make your bones when it comes to building a quarterback, and what do you believe makes a great quarterback?
Well, it's all my training. It's evolved over time, but my basis of mine was Gary Pinkel, and I mean, and he was the head coach at Toledo when I got hired. He was the head coach at Missouri. We were together for 17 years. But before he was the head coach at Toledo, he was the quarterback coach and offense coordinator at Washington, and he had Mark Brunell, he had Chris Chandler, he had Bill Joe Hobart, he had Hugh Millen. I mean, they had a string of quarterbacks very similar to what we were able to kind of have while we were at Missouri, where you have NFL guys and that. So he was a really good quarterback coach, and he'll tell you that those guys were good when he got them, and he just tried to help them, and that's what I kind of learned from him, was and how you train them in a certain way to get the most out of them, and figuring out what they can do, because each one's different. I mean, when I was at Missouri, we started off with Brad Smith, who I mean, I feel
Yeah.
bad because Brad Smith was kind of a Lamar Jackson type player before you were allowed to be that as a quarterback. And I
Yeah.
mean, when they came to work out Brad for his pro day, they asked him to do wide receiver drills, and he said, "Sure, I'll do whatever," because he just wanted an opportunity in the NFL, and he made it 10 years as a pretty much as a Swiss Army knife, doing everything from special teams to running back to receiver to all the special team stuff. So that's what it was. And we got lucky to have Chase, but they were so different, but they still had skills that you could win with. So you just try to you just kind of move to their direction of what their success is. And then we end up with Blaine Gabbert, who is has some similarities to Chase, but totally different because Chase is this 5'11", 6-foot guy, and Blaine's a 6'4" and a 6'5" guy can throw the ball through a wall. So it's like, okay, where's his strength? So we tried to move to his direction. And then when he was finishing up and leaving for the NFL, we got lucky to have a kid named James Franklin, who was very different. He ran the ball, and he was different than Brad in running the ball because he ran power read. He could run through people, whereas Brad ran around people. So you just kind of evolved with him, and then all that. And then I got to go with Coach Leach at Washington State for those years, which a lot of the things I believed in and I'd done with the quarterbacks at Missouri was kind of the way I'd done it. And I saw how Coach Leach did it. And I've evolved a little bit off that because he really kept things at a very simple rate for the guys so they could go play and play early and play well. So I was really impressed by that. So I tried to steal some of those things from him as we've moved on. And a lot of the things we did with Jordan at Utah State were kind of those Washington State principles with kind of my background of how you train quarterbacks. And I'm not all the way to Coach Leach. I mean, but I was a lot of the things I kind of stole or kind of evolved in that direction there. So no, it's been fun, and working with quarterbacks is the best thing about my job. I mean, people asking, being the offensive coordinator is great, calling plays, designing plays, all that stuff's fun. But my favorite thing is coaching the quarterbacks. Like this spring was tremendous here because, I mean, spring football is great because you get a practice and you get a day in between most of the time, and then you get another practice. So instead of, you're not like racing to a game. You're not in fall camp. You're kind of racing to fall camp to get to game week. During the game week, you're racing to get to that game every week. Well, in spring ball, you're kind of like, no, we can sit in there and have our meetings and, hey, how's our drop here? Hey, our footwork on this run play. Hey, we want to be perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, which I can be a jerk about it and demand it at this time because I've got time to do it. Now, once you get into fall camp and the end of the season, it's like I got to try to remember to look for that stuff, but you're looking at the big picture a lot more. So it was a lot of fun this spring getting to just focusing on the quarterback. And you could see guys growing in the position and getting better at it I'm dealing with three guys that had never dealt with me before, all coming from different backgrounds, different situations, and kind of like, hey, this is where we're all moving toward. And you could see it kind of go, and had some real good success, and definitely things we need to work on as we hit the summer and hit fall.
And I forget about Brad Smith. He was dynamite, man. He averaged over 100 yards rushing a game, two full
Yeah.
seasons, and he could throw it too. You're right. He was kind of ahead of his time.
Yeah, and that was back when you weren't allowed to do that. That
Right.
wasn't what the NFL used, and the NFL has evolved similarly. So many of the things, and I mean, as we were talking the other day, we were just kind of watching the UFL games, and I remember when the World League started, and a big part of why the World League of American Football was going on was so they could train quarterbacks because the colleges, we weren't providing them with NFL ready quarterbacks because of the offenses were different. Not a lot of guys were playing in that style of offense that the NFL was using. So it was more of a training ground for those guys. And I remember Jake Delhomme was a guy there. I had a kid named played for me at Missouri, Kirk Farmer, who made it a year or two there with the Chiefs as a guy in the World League. But we were talking the other day, but now the NFL game is more evolved to. They use a lot more things that we use, and we probably use. There's a lot more similarities where guys can walk in and play quicker and have success, and they lean in that direction. Kyler Murray would never have had an opportunity to play quarterback 15 years ago. They just said, no, he can't, he's too small.
Yeah.
He's not a pocket passer, which he isn't, but they figured out how to use him. He's a great player. And every guy's a little different, but that's the evolution the NFL's done. And the same thing we do is trying to take advantage of what we have in that way, because you can't just design a guy from the ground up.
So and we've gotten into it in print, but if people missed it, when it comes to Jordan at Utah State, obviously you guys get together and he's a raw quarterback. He needs some time, but his willingness to wait and learn and be patient and get better, that was something you saw early on. And what kind of popped with Jordan, the player, and Jordan, the person, when you got with him at Utah State?
Well, the thing that probably stuck out to me the first, and we've talked about this a bunch, and why I thought the Green Bay situation didn't like was going to be something he would actually use to his advantage. Was I showed up at Utah State. I got there in January. He had come in the year before, went through spring football, and then they decided to register him and send him to scout team. But like when I showed up in January and we started talking football, and we started putting the offense in there, and I would draw it up and say, hey, we're going to call this 8, or we're going to call this red, or whatever. He was the guy. It was funny because we had a returning starter in the room. We had some other guys that had been there a while, and he was like, "Oh, we called that popcorn last year." I mean, he was the one that knew it, and I was impressed that okay. So he went through spring, and that's a big adjustment for any high school quarterback to jump in and learn an offense. And they said no, he did a great job learning it. And then he really competed in the spring, and then they got into fall camp, and they said they were kind of going along, and then they made a determination that hey, yeah, he's probably not going to play a whole bunch this year. We're better off redshirting him to have another year on the other end. And this was still when that's kind of what you did with quarterbacks. And so they decided to redshirt him. But so he was going down to scout team, but he was sitting in the quarterback meetings. But like he learned it. He didn't just take that year off. Which I've been around a lot of good quarterbacks that they have a hard time not being the guy. They have a hard time being in that meeting and not being the starting quarterback. Because primarily when you're in that quarterback meeting, you talk to the starter. I mean, that's who you're coaching and everything. And when the two gets reps, you kind of coach him on that stuff. But primarily, everything you do in that meeting is focused toward that starter, and the other guys have to they have to learn it off of that. And to watch come in there, and Jordan kind of knew the previous offense, and you'd only been there through a spring of it in a fall camp. I was like, okay, this. And then as soon as we started putting stuff in, he got it. He picked it up. It was like, okay, he can pick things up quickly. He's naturally got football sense, IQ, whatever you want to call, and then to see him kind of grow within it. But then as we talked, like when he goes to Green Bay, and it was like, well, he's not going to be the guy initially. Well, he's the one guy I knew would be like, oh, he'll be okay doing that. I've had other quarterbacks, and I mean, it's happened before doing this portal stuff. You get a call about a guy that you had that's going to the portal, and they ask, hey, we're looking for a backup quarterback. What do you think about this guy you've had? And I'm like, no, he'd be a terrible backup because he's never been a backup before. He couldn't, like, he'll be lost. He'll sit in that meeting and be so bored to death and lose track and lose focus that he's not going to get anything out of this. If you put him in, he's going to be like shocked by it because you're not coaching him to be the guy. So he's going to, his lack of focus is going to show up. Whereas Jordan's didn't. Jordan's was going to be like, okay, if he might not get any reps as the number 2, because that's what happens a lot of NFL style during the week. You don't have as many reps, but if he's called upon, he's going to go in there and know what he's supposed to be doing. Now he'll have to do it to get great at it, which they all do, but he was a guy that way, but you could tell that. And then he had the it quality. I've always called it the it. Different people call it different things, but that's what all the quarterbacks I've had that are the best ones I've had, they all had it, where they're going to run the football team. They have that special ability to make themselves that they're a great player no matter what. And it's all different. It's not the same. I've had guys that talk a lot, and that's great, and that's their style. I've had other ones. Brad Smith was super quiet. All he did was work hard, and he showed everybody he had that, and all the guys could rally behind him and follow him. Jordan would talk some. He didn't talk very often, but when he did, everybody listened. I mean, everybody listened. I mean, they're all these guys are in the huddle on the sideline just talking whatever. And then all of a sudden, if Jordan started talking, it got quiet and they all listened to him, boom. And then they went and did it. But everybody's got that differently. I mean, Herbert didn't talk very much. He was super, super quiet to the point that it almost worried you a little bit. But the guys you could just see his ability and how good he was. I mean, from the first day he showed up, he showed up in the summer because he wasn't an early enrollee, and we had a receiver. One day we're sitting there in the summer, and he goes, "Hey, you're freshman quarterback." And I was like, and we had a couple that year, and I said, "Terry." He goes, "No, the tall guy." And I was like, "Oh, Justin." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Man," and he points to the guy who was our starting quarterback at the time at Oregon, and he goes, "Hey, he's going to take his job. It's just a matter of time." And he was buddies with the starter, and I was like, "Okay." And this was. And all he'd done at that point was he was in the weight room and he's going out and throwing a little bit of 7-on-7, and he had no idea what we were doing offensively or any of that stuff. And but like he was a guy when you put him put them in fall camp. We put them with the fours the first day, and guess the ones looked pretty good, and the fours looked pretty good. So after a few days, we moved him up to the threes, and then all of a sudden the ones and the threes looked pretty good. And before that, the twos and the threes were not very good. And then next thing you know, you put them with the twos, and you're like, oh, the twos are better. It's like, well, the constant here is Herbert. He just made it work. And I don't know if he always knew exactly what he was doing or what we were trying to do on a play, but he found a way to make it work. And that was a lot like when Chase Daniel showed up as a freshman. He passed guys up because whatever group you put him with, they were good. They were able to make plays. He found a way to make it work. And because you get quarterbacks sometimes who'll be like, well, coach, I was with the twos. I didn't have as much time. I said, well, all the good ones I've ever had, when they go with the twos, I make the twos good. I go, it's not about them being good around you. You have to make them good. That's what the really good ones make the guys around them better. And I think Jordan kind of always had that from the get-go. And it wasn't easy and perfect for him. I mean, I remember that first fall camp, he had a great spring, kind of moved himself into the number 2 spot. He had a really good summer and everything. And then we start fall camp, and our starter hits his thumb on a helmet. So next thing you know, we're kind of, okay, Jordan, you're going to get a lot of 1 reps. And I don't know, he was off a little bit. He's trying to make super throws. I mean, I just remember he threw an interception one day, and I was like, and he hit the linebacker right in his face. And I said, what are you? He goes, I was trying to throw it around him. And I was like, around him? I go, how do you get the ball around him?
Like a Rory McIlroy shot, yeah.
Yeah, one of these, like from the old, I joked at the time, it was off the movie, like there was a movie, Wanted or something, where they shot out the bullets and they made him like go around the corner. I was like, you're not going to bend it around the guy. And he had to kind of like settle himself down and like, okay, yeah, because quarterbacks, one of the things quarterbacks have to do is know when a guy is covered. I mean, it used to be, and everybody always laugh at it. You'd say the 3 don'ts for quarterbacks: don't have a quarterback center exchange problem, don't have a quarterback running back exchange problem, and then don't throw to covered receivers. And everybody would laugh at the covered receivers, and I'm like, you'd be surprised how many guys can't do that. And I've seen that. I've seen guys that they can't. They make great throws, and then every now and then they hit the backer in the face because the backer was there this time. And but Jordan was able to kind of make decisions to make sure those weren't. But oh no, so it's been fun. But Jordan was fun to work with, and he was like wanted more and more and more because he was a guy that took. We gave him a lot of freedom to check things, and that's really when the offense took off his second year, was because he was running the offense. I was recommending plays, and he was calling, and he was making sure. And I remember when Coach LaFleur called me and we talked about it, and I said, well, I go, if you watch the video, you see when he looks at his wristband, because that's what we were, a wristband team. I go, he's looking at that, and I go, most plays, there's 2 or 3 things listed there. He gets to pick which one he wants. I go, but on top of that, he can go to whatever he wants. I go, I'm recommending these plays to him, and then he's going to get in the right thing. And I said, most of the vertical throws that he makes in a game are, he saw the look he liked the matchup, he liked all those things, the situation. Hey, it's not 3rd and 1, you're throwing the ball 40 yards downfield. We got a chance to attack him here. He took advantage of it. So he was good that way because he was able to kind of be an aggressive play caller at the quarterback position, which that I have a lot more fun, and I have a lot more success when my quarterback's kind of the aggressive play caller of the group. Because then I don't have to be. When I'm having to always push them to try to get the ball down the field, that's when it gets hard because that's not their nature. But he was an aggressive kind of get the ball down the field kind of guy, and we had some weapons to do it with, but he did a great job with it.
Which is fascinating because I feel like year 3 as the starter in Green Bay, and Leroy Butler got into this a couple weeks ago on the pod. He's like, Matt LaFleur should just give him the keys, like let him run the offense more than. And I understand, right? Early on, it's like you're replacing Aaron Rodgers, and this is Matt LaFleur's chance to really put his fingerprints all over this offense. I can't imagine how liberating that was for LaFleur as a offensive guy his whole life as the play caller. But what is the value in maybe giving Jordan a little more leash here, giving him a little bit more freedom? You just kind of laid it out beautifully there, where he's got a menu of plays and he can kind of pick and choose when he has the ownership to kind of call some plays himself and take his own shots. How much better of a quarterback is Jordan Love?
Well, I think it's most quarterbacks when they're able to do that, because they've got and this was a Leach deal, they've got the best view of the defense and they've got the last view of the defense because they can do it right up to that snap. And I mean, I try to watch Jordan whenever I can. And I mean, in Green Bay does a great job offensively taking advantage of their guys. And you can see kind of Jordan evolving with that receiving core and the tight ends and that it seems like they're all growing together in like a strong way. But I would not be surprised that like Jordan's able to kind of, hey, this is what we're going to do, but if they give you this, take that and those opportunities. And I'm sure that's already going on to a point on certain things. But that's when you can really see an offense take off because they spend so much time studying it, they know it, and then they're able to control everything and get everything in the right framework. I mean, we had a couple opportunities this spring, and it hasn't happened as much yet because we're still new in it. But we had our one quarterback goes up. We had a play called. Boom, he looks at it, and they happen to go press on one of our guys that they should not be pressing. He's gonna run right by him, and all he did was look out there. He didn't change anything. We had a protection he could work with, and he just gave him our win route signal, and went back, looked the other way, and threw him a go route. And he's about 6 yards behind our guy it was just a matchup deal that they got caught in with a motion that he took full advantage of, and but boom, all of a sudden you got a 60-yard play happening. Well, that makes football a lot easier when your quarterback can do those things. So you're not in that constant mode of I got to call the perfect play for every down because if I don't, we're going to be behind the stick. So you can see that in certain situations last year when I was watching Green Bay, how when they could really get a flow going with that run game and then the passing and everything, and then you play some really good NFL teams. That's much harder to do. So
You made a really good point too with his quality of just working his ass off when he is a backup, when he isn't the guy, and trying to absorb the entire playbook and absorb the offense. It kind of is the opposite of what we were saying earlier with a lot of quarterbacks today. If like they're not the starter, they're going to try to go to a school where they can be the starter with the way college football is set up. But man, I don't know. There's a coach for the Packers. We talked before last season, and he said, man, people don't understand year to year to year the kind of work and diligence that Jordan needed to have as a quarterback because you don't. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is an MVP, and then Aaron Rodgers is holding the team hostage for a few months, and then he returns, and you're just kind of waiting, and you don't know what in the hell is going to happen. That takes a sort of like mental toughness, doesn't it, as a quarterback to just wait your turn and never know when that chance is going to come.
oh yeah, and I would text with Jordan every now and then because you'd see different things, but I think he was always in that mode of I can't control anything but what I'm doing, and I mean that's what he
Right.
did when he
Everybody
was
says
the
it,
number.
right? I can't control it. I can't control like, but he lives it. Like there's substance to it.
Oh yeah, no, he went and got better. I mean, because if he'd have wasted those times sitting back there, which I, I'm telling you, I've been around guys that do. They sit there and they're like, well, when it's my turn, I'll do it. Well, it's never going to become your turn if you don't do it beforehand in that way. And I mean, I remember when Chase Daniel signed, he left us at Missouri. He ended up in Washington, and they had a quarterback room, and he said one of the guys in the room had been on the team the year before, but had been injured all year. And the guy had been a rookie year before, and he goes, yeah, he doesn't know any of the offense. I don't know what he did last year in the meetings. And I was like, okay. I go, well, you got to beat him out. He's like, yeah, I've got that. I'm taking care of that right now. So, I mean, you got to take advantage of what you get and everything. No, that's what the whole thing with Jordan was. I was like, well, he's the one guy I knew that he would take advantage of being a backup as opposed to just being mad all the time or being disappointed or, oh, woe was me, or hey, when do I get my chance? It was like, well, you better be ready when you get your chance. And I think he showed that early on. At least I think the coaches. Otherwise, he wouldn't still be there. And I know it was one of his first games against the Chiefs was not his best game when he got to play for Aaron. But he went in and I mean they tried to put him in a good position, and it was a tough day, and he didn't have his best day there, but I think they must have seen enough in practice because that's what we see as coaches. You see them in practice, you get an idea of what you got. Like hey, this is our quarterback room, this is our guy, and we have a number two, or we have in that case we have a guy we can win with if Aaron is ever gone or the starter is ever gone. They had that belief. Otherwise, they would have moved on and got went a new direction because you can't even have an off year in the NFL at that position. I mean, everybody in the NFL, you either have a quarterback or you're looking for a quarterback, and if it's one of those two things all the time, and if you're in that other area, you're in that purgatory of, well, you have no chance. All you're doing is you're waiting to go get one.
And so they did their homework. They knew that Jordan was wired to kind of handle a 2 or 3 year wait because I mean I don't know why more teams just don't do what Green Bay does. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like just draft a quarterback when you don't need a quarterback. It's going to piss off people, including your starter. But it's too valuable. It's just too valuable. But you also got to know like Jordan Love is going to work day in and day out and be patient and improve and because he did improve. I mean, it was ugly. That Kansas City game was not a sight to behold, but he got better and better. And I mean, you talked to Matt LaFleur. So what were those conversations like before the draft? Were they kind of trying to get to know the person in addition to the player?
Yeah, because it was and what Coach LaFleur had said, it was different because that was the COVID time. Because I was at Texas Tech at the time, so I was gone from Jordan for that whole season, but we just had a natural. There was a connection. One of the guys on the staff there I'd worked with at Missouri, Daryl Franklin, and that's so he got and I knew Coach LaFleur. We watched Jacob Eason throw one day together up in Washington, in Seattle one day, and that's so I'd known him from recruiting for a while. So he called and said, "Hey, normally I go out and I sit down with the quarterbacks. I get to know them and everything." He goes, "We just don't get to because of COVID." In that time, and I was like, "Okay." He goes, "What's he like?" So we had, I think there were 3 times he called, and we talked for 45 minutes to an hour just about how he thinks, how he reacts to things, how he handles things in that way. Because I mean, and that's when I was like, okay, they have serious interest in him, and I know they have Aaron Rodgers, but they have serious interest. That I mean, the head coach is making, and he's a quarterback guy, but he's making a lot of effort to know what this could be if this is a guy we want to go on and all that. But no, it was about like, hey, how's he think? How's he handle things? How's he do things? And I mean, I remember I said, well, you see, when he checks a lot of his own plays, I go, I'm just recommending plays, and he's calling them. And he goes, and Coach LaFleur's joke was like, you think I do anything different with Aaron Rodgers? And I said, well, no. I go, and that's in a different aspect. But yeah, I mean that, which I always find that interesting because I coach a guy for at the most basically 4 years. I mean, if we redshirt him, that I spend 5 years with a guy. I can't imagine having a guy that's like 35 years old he's played 15, 18 years of high level football, and you're talking to him, and just all the experience I have and all the little things, the difference in coaching that guy. Then I'm always dealing with kids. I look at it, and I
Right.
mean, like coaching Jordan Love now, you're not. I mean, I'd still see him as a kid because I coached him then, but he's not. I mean, he's an adult. He's a man. I mean, this is his livelihood. This is his business. It's way different than when I first got him at Utah State, and he's just having fun and all that. Now it's a totally different aspect of that. But no, it's interesting the dynamic you have with the quarterback.
Just and also on Jordan. So in 2018, that was his best year by far. You know, in college, obviously, 3,567 yards, 32 touchdowns, only 6 picks. Led the conference in yards per attempt, 8.6. And then you had left in 2019, right? That's when you went to Texas Tech.
Yep.
And so then we see the interception number
I
go
should have
up to
taken him. Should
17.
have taken Well, I should have taken him with me, but no. That's nowadays. You would take him with you. I mean, it'd have been a package deal, but no, that was before that time and everything. But yeah, I mean, and we knew like we kind of joked at the time because I think the next year they played LSU, they played. I mean, all their it they had LSU, they had Wake Forest, they had their schedule
Right.
got tougher than what we had. We had Michigan State, which was good, and we were driving actually to have a chance to tie the game or try to win in regulation uh, in that first game. But then we kind of got rolling after that and won 10 in a row. But no, in the next year his numbers. But and I think and also we'd had so his my first year with him as a redshirt freshman, we go out and we start a whole new offensive line. He takes over the job after the Wyoming game, which was against Josh Allen. So we played Josh Allen. He beat us on a power replay, went for a touchdown. But Jordan, that was his real first where he played a lot and kind of started to lead the team. And then we went to him as a starter. But then the next year when we came back, I think we returned 10 of 11 starters and everything. So I mean, it was he was comfortable with the guys around him, and then most of that offense line all graduated the following year. The running backs
Right.
graduated that next year. I think one of them, the tight end, graduated that next year. The best receiver graduated. So I mean, all of a sudden he was dealing with new stuff. So it got harder for him, and he's the kind of guy that he wouldn't accept that as an excuse. He was going to have to go make more plays. So he probably tried to do a little bit more than what he needed to or
Right.
what he could do in that
And I
way.
think
But
Green Bay saw
yeah,
that too and appreciated that. Right. He's down linemen, down skill position players. It's a different world. I mean, you go back and watch that LSU game. I mean, it's just like the ball is snapped and there's people in his face. But he didn't flinch. At the same time, though, like I think this is kind of a balance that Green Bay's trying to figure out because he had a little stretch early last season where there were some interceptions and some risk taking, and God, you don't want to neuter all of that from his game. Like you want Jordan Love pushing the ball down the field, taking those shots. You don't want to turn him into some kind of game manager at 55 million a year. That's just bad finances too. So what is that perfect balance to strike then? You think with a Jordan Love?
well, he's an aggressive. When I had him, he's an aggressive thrower. He wants to get the ball down the field. That was always kind of. He was a guy. It's easier to say whoa than to go. Is how I always talk about the quarterbacks. It it drives me when I'm calling stuff or I'm giving them plays and they're finding the check downs. I'm like, okay, I like completions. You're not in trouble for a completion. You never are, but you got guys running on the field. You have opportunities. We need to take these opportunities, and we're gonna have to do it. And he's an aggressive thrower that way. And I think, and I know early in the year last year he had some, and you could tell. You see how mad he is after the fact. But and I think that's that fine line of figuring out, okay, I can or can't make that throw. Is this too much? When can I? And if you try to do too much, you're going to get in a hole. But if you're not doing enough, you give yourself no chance. So that's a balance, I think. And with him, I mean, he's got a lot of years ahead of him, a lot of football ahead of him. So this is just he's still early in his really pro career. It's just he had that time where he wasn't playing, and then once he started playing, he kind of
Yeah.
popped pretty quick, and everybody kind of, oh, here you go, you got another. I mean, you follow Favre, you follow Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's kind of just Green Bay's been spoiled for a while with having good quarterbacks. I mean, I remember when I was a kid when Green Bay was terrible at football, and
One
and
magic man in there briefly, right? I know you're a big Don
yeah,
Bukowski guy.
I had him on my fantasy team when I was in,
That's right.
and he had an unbelievable year, and he had Sterling Sharp and all that. So it was that, but no, there was some tough time, but no, it's that fine line of okay, am I reckless or am I being aggressive? And you want him to kind of right beyond that line in that way. You want him to be pushing that
Yeah.
all the time, and then it's easier to say, hey, let's pull it back. Hey, let's be smart with the football, make good decisions. Not, hey, I got to push you more toward the edge so we can get some of those explosive plays because football is about explosive plays. I mean, it's that's how you score points, and you win by scoring points. Protecting the football and getting explosive plays
Yeah.
is the key to everything you do.
Well, I hope Ben Johnson knocked some sense into everybody at the owners' meeting. It was my buddy Dan Weeder at the Chicago Tribune. I think he asked him the question, and I don't know if you caught it, Ben Johnson in so many words. I'm paraphrasing. Said like the biggest indicator between winning and losing to him is now EPA, not necessarily the turnover battle. Like the turnover battle, it matters, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like you can drill that into everybody's head, and all of a sudden, your quarterback, not just your quarterback, everybody's playing a little scared, a little tense. Like you got to play loose, right? You got to play to win, think to win, take chances. I think of anybody in any line of work too, David. I'm just thinking like back to when I first got into sports writing. I'm a 10th grader, 11th grader, writing at the Olean Times Herald, and my boss Chuck Pollock would. I mean, he would let me write columns in a professional newspaper about the NBA. Like I'm arguing, why Kevin Durant should be the first pick over Greg Oden. And I look back and like, why did he let me do that? It's like he was just letting me go. Like let somebody succeed or fail and take chances in anything. And I don't know. I think that's just so good for the brain chemistry of anybody in any industry. And you saw it up close with Jordan. I imagine every quarterback loves playing for you if you're going to let him kind of slam that gas pedal within reason, right? You can't go 120 down the highway. But I don't. it's okay to be creative and innovative at this position.
Oh yeah, and that's what in practice you want them to kind of stretch themselves and everything. And what we do, and this is just kind of a standard. I've always been like, we're big on, like, we talk about turnover margin, and the ones we feel we can control a lot more are like fumbles. So like we're on everybody's tail about how you carry the football, how you protect the football, and those types of things. Um, and I've had it before because like, and there's times when, hey, a guy drops the ball, you do something after practice with them. If they fumble a football, we're gonna talk about it. They're gonna, like, here they're gonna get up in front of the whole offense and explain to us 5 points of pressure, that how we carry a football, because that's how important it is. But we don't, like, interceptions. We don't really make a big deal about it because I'm like, I don't want the guys ever scared of throwing an interception, because if you throw the football, they're going to happen. A ball is going to get tipped. You're going to think the window's there and it's not. A receiver is going to tip a football. Um, things happen throwing the football. I mean, it's not the old Woody Hayes theory of you throw the ball, three things happen and two are bad, type thing. Well, no, it's those things. But so I've never like punished a guy for interceptions, but there's definitely guys. And what I always talk about, and this has been a thing I've had this discussion a lot with quarterback people and kind of how you evaluate quarterbacks. The number one thing you can evaluate in a quarterback, I think, off of video is accuracy. You can watch their stuff, you can watch their game stuff, you can see, are they an accurate thrower of the football? And that's the number one thing I think in being a successful quarterback, is you have to be accurate in that way, is being accurate. Now, the number one reason why guys play, and this is because I've had arguments with people and they're like, well, they got to be accurate. And I'm like, yep, they got to be accurate. That we evaluate that in recruiting or in drafting. But I go, you don't know the other part. I go, the guys who play can make decisions after the snap. And I go, and it sounds simple, but I go, not every guy can. Not every guy who plays quarterback can, after the snap of the ball, make a decision on, hey, it's covered, it's not covered, I can make the throw, I can't make the throw, the situation. And that's where the guys that separate. The guys that can make decisions after the snap are the guys who play, and they can play at a higher level. I've been lucky because, and I go back through it, like Brad Smith could make decisions. Now, he was probably a little bit more of a conservative guy because he had and I've run into this when you have a guy that's really athletic, he can run. They always have kind of that get out of jail free card. They've used their whole life of, they don't have to make the super throw because, well, I can scramble, I can run and make a play.
Right.
As opposed to like when you get to a Chase Daniel where he's got to make it with his arm. Blaine Gabbert, he's got to make it with his arm. So those guys were both able to really make decisions on when guys were open or not open, in that way. And it's funny, I've had quarterbacks before. You go back and the guy runs. This is an odd trait, and most coaches understand this. When a receiver runs the wrong route, it's amazing how many times we throw him the football. Okay, it is. The guy runs the wrong route, and the first thing the quarterback will tell you, I'll say, "What are you doing?" He's like, "He ran the wrong route." I'm like, "You threw it to him," because when the guy runs the wrong route, it's just like it blows their mind, and they're like, and they just throw the ball to the guy. And to the point, I've had guys before, we throw an interception in practice, and I'm like, and he's like, "He ran the wrong route," and I'm like, "He was covered and you threw it to him." Yeah, but he ran the wrong route. I'm like, "You have 51% of the vote. Don't throw him the ball." But it's the decision making after the snap is what I think differentiates quarterbacks that can really play the game at a high level. And then you have to have the physical traits, and the physical traits are what we can evaluate in recruiting, and that. But then, can you make the decisions after the snap? And then, do you have the ability to? I mean, in quarterbacks, they run the team. I mean, that's what they do. It's there's no difference. I mean, that is standard, I think, across everything. That guy has to be so good at what he does that the whole team can rally behind him, but he runs the team, and they do it in their own way, but they kind of are they have to be the alpha of the group, even if they're not the guy that stands up and says all the stuff but everybody knows it's his team, and where he goes, we can go. And if he can't get us there, guess what? We won't get there. I mean, is what it comes down to. I mean, we as coaches, we don't have too much time on our hands, but we sit in there and every now and then come up and we start talking about like this year's draft of quarterbacks. And I have not studied him. I mean, I watched Shedeur when he was in high school. I very much underestimated him. He's a way better college football player than I ever thought he was going to be. When I was at Texas Tech, I watched his video, and I did not see what he became. So I was wrong on that one. Um, and I actually saw Cam Ward in high school football and thought he was a good player, not good enough that we recruited him at Texas Tech, but he kind of made my initial list of guys that I thought were like scholarship type players in the state of Texas and everything. And then he went to Incarnate Word and has done a great job. But we were talking the other day, and one of our coaches he played in the NFL. And he goes, well, I don't know if that guy's worth a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick or whatever. And I said, if I don't have a quarterback, I'm drafting a quarterback until I find one. And because if you draft one anymore, it's not the same punishment you used to get when you took a quarterback and you're stuck with them because you're paying them so much money earlier on. I'm like, I mean, what the Cardinals did a few years ago, they drafted the guy out of UCLA, Rosen, and decided after a year that he wasn't the answer. So they went and got Kyler Murray because he was good enough, which to me, until you have a quarterback, you should draft every quarterback you can to try to find one. And
Totally
that, and
agree.
the thing I heard the other day, they were talking about, I mean, you talked about Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and um, Lamar Jackson being the top 3 in the NFL right now, which I mean, it's very easy to argue that. And they're like, none of those guys were top 5 picks. And I was like, no, but but Jared Goff he's really good. Joe Burrow he's really good. So I don't know where you get them at, but you better get one. I mean, until you have one, you should be taking all the guys you can in that way.
Well, amen. I mean, yeah, if you're a general manager, if you're anybody in charge, I totally agree because you don't want to get fired and look back and say, oh, I never even drafted a quarterback, somebody that I had conviction on. So I know you said you didn't like, you're not studying these guys, play in and play out, but let's wrap it up right there with the NFL draft. Is there somebody like, Cam Ward's going to go number one, whether it's, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Tyler Chuck, Kyle McCord, Dylan Gabriel, who else we got here? I mean, the right Jackson Dart, of course. Is there a quarterback that you like? I mean, we've talked so much about the position this hour. Is there somebody
I
that
haven't
pops to you, David Yost?
I haven't studied Shedeur as much, but I've watched his games been on TV, and they happen to be a lot of those early games, so you get to kind of watch them. I've been amazed at how accurate he is and how much duress he was under, which I think that's a undervalued thing because I think a lot of those, when you see a lot of the guys that come from some of the top programs, they've had it's never easy. Playing quarterback is never easy, but a lot of those guys have had better circumstances or better things around them so that it's easier to manage the position and play the position. I think watching what he's had to do with as far as getting himself out of trouble and still make plays over and over and over again, I think a lot of that will carry over to the NFL because I think that's you what you are. I mean, he makes plays, and I don't think he breaks things down just to break them down. Because I always watch that. Is this guy looking to make super play every time? I mean, because that's what everybody talks about that with like Pat Mahomes, how many great plays he makes. Well, when you watch him, there's a whole bunch of throws in that game. He catches, sets, and throws the ball on time to a guy at a high rate. Then every now and then he has to go and make the spectacular play in that way. Josh Allen is become a tremendous player, but a lot of Josh Allen isn't the super play anymore. It's just making all the normal plays. And then I think he's grown into that. And I think that's what, when you watch Shedeur Sanders, I think he fixes a lot of things you have to do as a quarterback. I tell the quarterbacks all the time, your job is to fix the mistakes of the guys around you. Because guess what? The right guard is going to get beat sometime. It's not a hot situation. It's not a blitz situation, but heck, the right guard gets edged, and all of a sudden you got to slide to your left and make a throw. You got to do it. And I mean, we try to do drills for those things, but you got to be able to do that. And just watching what Shedeur was able to do at Colorado at a really high level over and over and over again, when everybody knew they were throwing the ball almost every snap. You'd watch that game and it was just, and he found ways to make play after play after play to keep him in games and to win games. So I've been way impressed by him, and I think a lot of what he does will kind of show up in the NFL in that way. And that, so he's the one guy that's kind of stood out to me because he's had to deal with kind of the tougher things. Which, if you watch Pat Mahomes, I mean, he was playing at Texas Tech, and they were not a great football team at the time. Coach Kingsbury was there. They did some unbelievable things on offense, but he was a lot of times was behind or having to make plays. He wasn't playing with a lead too often, and he was able to make them a successful team as best they could. And then a lot of that stuff kind of carried over when he got there. And I mean, Josh Allen had to be the best player on the field every game for Wyoming. And guess what? That's what he's just used to doing in that, where some of those other guys are playing I mean, you're playing at some of those blue chip programs and they've got offensive linemen that are getting drafted too, or a bunch of them getting drafted. You're like, okay, their lives were a little easier, a little cleaner than some of those other guys.
That I mean, and now we're at that point in the pre-draft discourse where Shedeur Sanders is that biology frog experiment. Everybody's just poking and prodding, and now we're hearing, well, is he even a first round pick? Well, I don't know. You just made a compelling case. If I'm like the New York Giants and I'm picking three, and I've got Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, and I still need a quarterback, I'm in my fourth year of the regime. You better think long and hard about taking Shedeur
If
Sanders there, probably.
if I didn't have a quarterback, I would draft Shedeur Sanders. I mean, I can see where he can take, and if you're wrong, guess what? You're probably picking really high again next year. Here we go, and go get whoever's next year's great one. But no, that's you got to have one of those. Either you got one, or you don't have one, or you think you have somebody that might be one. I mean, that's what everybody in the NFL is constantly doing. And if you don't have one, you better find a way to go get one because you have. I mean, otherwise you don't. You might be able to make the playoffs, you might, but you're not going to win the Super Bowl without having a guy at that position anymore. That's what it's gotten to, and that's what the game's become. It's college football is the same way. I mean, Georgia last year, a guy got hurt. Guess what? They weren't the same team as they move forward in those situations, and that goes on all the time. And a couple of years ago, Florida State went from Travis, who was a great player for him, he gets hurt, and they don't even get to go in the little 14 playoff because everybody said, well, they're not the same team, which they weren't. I mean, Jordan Travis was such a player for him that they weren't the same team now, and their whole team kind of got punished for it. But bottom line is, they probably wouldn't have been as competitive with that group. With
Right.
that, no question, they wouldn't have been as competitive without him. So I don't know if I agree that he didn't make the playoffs, but again, they didn't ask me, so it didn't matter. But in that way, but no, you got to have a guy at that spot. That's what everything's moving toward. I mean, the same thing in recruiting. I tell every head coach I talk to when you're talking about jobs and that they ask about the quarterback position. I said we should recruit as many as it takes to find one, and I go and we give them all as many reps as we can early. And if when they start to show signs they can be the guy, then we got to lean on those guys that way, and we can make quick decisions on guys. I mean, because what I found in the past is the really good ones I've been around, they were really good the first day. The first day Brad Smith showed up and started doing stuff, everybody on our team was like, oh, he's really good. He's going to be a really good player for us. When Chase Daniel showed up, everybody's like, wow. When Blaine Gabbert showed up, it was like other guys left the program because they said they saw him throwing the ball and what he could do. I mean, the good ones are good from day one. They don't take. They're not the unknown guy that I'm sure Josh Allen when he showed up for home and they probably went, oh, yep, we were right. Everybody else was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
And if you
those
start
guys stand out.
rationalizing with an average guy, you're just gonna end up being shit out of luck.
Oh yeah, no,
If you find yourself having to talk yourself into somebody, right? It's probably not a good thing.
oh yeah. Well, I say it all the time. We sit in meetings and we talk about our players on our team, and I've always said this about quarterbacks. If I'm sitting here every day saying well, he's getting better, well, and any coach does this. If I'm sitting in the meeting and they say such and such is getting better, I'm like, is he ever getting good enough? Most of the time, it's no. Okay, then let's stop talking about him. And that's the same thing with quarterback. If all we're doing is sitting there saying, "Oh, he's getting better. He's getting better," was he ever going to be good enough? No. Okay, let's move on. Let's get going. Let's invest those snaps in a guy that can be, if we have that.
Well, David Yost, man, this was awesome. We'll be keeping an eye on New Mexico State football this year, running the show offensively, working with those quarterbacks. Hopefully, you can nail down this position and get into that playoff. Right? Who the hell knows, man? We'll have to check
I just
back
want
in
to win
with
the
you when you're
first game.
undefeated in November.
I just want to win the first game against Bryant. That's all the focus is right
Well,
now.
hey,
So,
thanks so much, man. I'm sure I'll be bothering you at some point this football season. Just find an excuse to give you a call and learn something. So thank you so much, man. This was awesome.
nope. Thank you. Have a great day.